Imagine you win 500 euros. Your heart races. You feel excited. You think, maybe I'm on a roll. Then you lose 100 euros. Instead of walking away, you think, I just need one more bet to get it back. You lose another 200 euros. Now, you're not even gambling to win anymore. You're gambling because you can't stand being down. So why is it so difficult to stop? Why can something that started as entertainment turn into something that feels almost impossible to control? The answer lies deep inside the psychology of gambling and the way gambling interacts with the brain's reward system. One of the most powerful forces behind gambling addiction is something psychologists call variable reinforcement. The basic idea is simple. If a reward arrives unpredictably, we can become incredibly motivated to keep trying. Think about a slot machine. You pull the lever. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And then suddenly you win. That unpredictability is important. If a machine paid you every 10th spin, you'd quickly figure out the pattern. But when you don't know when the reward is coming, your brain has a reason to keep checking. This is similar to why notifications, social media feeds, and other unpredictable rewards can be so compelling. Gambling takes that mechanism and combines it with money, anticipation, and emotion. The brain doesn't simply respond to winning, it responds to the possibility of winning. And that anticipation can become a reward in itself. You've probably heard that dopamine is the brain's pleasure chemical. That's an oversimplification. Dopamine is heavily involved in motivation, learning, anticipation, and reward prediction. When you gamble, your brain is constantly making predictions. Could this be the winning one? When the outcome is better than expected, that prediction system gets a powerful signal. Over time, the brain can begin associating gambling with excitement, anticipation, and the possibility of reward. And here's the important part. You don't necessarily need to win to stay engaged. The uncertainty itself can become stimulating. That's one reason someone might spend hours gambling, even while losing money. They're not simply chasing cash, they're chasing the next moment when everything could suddenly change. Gambling also exploits some very natural mistakes in human thinking. One of them is the gambler's fallacy. Imagine a roulette wheel lands on black 5 times in a row. You might think red has to be next. But if the game is genuinely random, the previous spins don't make red more likely. Another powerful psychological effect is the near miss. You don't win, but you come incredibly close. 3 matching symbols appear, but the 4th doesn't, or your number is just 1 position away. Technically, a near miss is still a loss, but psychologically, it can feel different. Your brain may interpret it as evidence that you're getting close. I almost had it. And that thought can encourage another attempt. This is where gambling becomes particularly dangerous. The person isn't necessarily thinking, I'm losing. They may be thinking, I'm getting closer. Then comes one of the most destructive patterns in gambling addiction, chasing losses. You lose 50 euros. You think, I'll win it back. Then you lose another 100 euros. Now you're thinking, I can't stop here. The goal has changed. At first, you were gambling to make money. Now you're gambling to erase the feeling of losing money. And that creates a psychological trap. Every loss increases the emotional pressure to continue. The bigger the loss becomes, the harder it can feel to accept it. So instead of walking away, a person may increase the stakes. This is sometimes called loss chasing. And ironically, trying to recover previous losses can create even larger ones. You might wonder, if someone knows gambling is hurting them, why don't they just stop? Because addiction isn't simply a lack of knowledge. A person can understand the mathematics, they can know they're losing money, they can promise themselves they'll stop, and still feel an intense urge to gamble. That's because addictive behavior can become connected to emotions, habits, environments, and learned reward patterns. Stress might trigger gambling, boredom might trigger it, loneliness might trigger it. Even receiving a paycheck or opening a betting app can become a cue. Eventually, the brain isn't only responding to the possibility of winning, it's responding to the entire ritual. Open the app, place the bet, wait, feel the anticipation, repeat. The most important thing to understand about gambling addiction is this: it's not simply about being greedy, and it's not simply about lacking self-control. Gambling can tap into powerful psychological systems involving reward, uncertainty, learning, emotion, and decision-making. The first bet might be about entertainment, but eventually the brain can learn to chase the feeling rather than the money. And that's why the most dangerous thought isn't always, "I'm going to win." Sometimes it's, "I just need one more bet." If gambling is causing financial problems, relationship problems, or making you feel unable to stop, that's a serious warning sign, not a personal failure. And recognizing the pattern is often the first step toward breaking it.